Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a topic that sits at the absolute cutting edge of human knowledge. We are going to be looking at the groundbreaking research of neurosurgeon Dr. Eddie Chang and really exploring the hidden science of human speech. We'll unpack the architecture of language and look at how artificial intelligence is literally decoding the brain right now to restore voices to people who have lost them. It's an incredible journey, honestly, one that bridges biology, engineering, and really the very essence of human identity. So, let's get into it.
To start, I want you to imagine something with me for a second. What happens when your mind is completely full of words, your thoughts are perfectly, crystal clear, but your physical body simply refuses to speak? This isn't just a hypothetical. This is the devastating, everyday reality for millions of people out there dealing with severe paralysis, ALS, spinal cord injuries, or brainstem strokes. Cognitively, they are entirely intact. They know exactly what they want to say to their loved ones. But the physical mechanism to actually produce that sound is just locked away. It's a profound loss of independence, right? Because communication is fundamentally how we connect to the world. But what if technology could bypass the body entirely? Well, before we can understand how science is fixing this broken communication bridge, we kind of have to uncover the hidden complexities of what actually happens when we talk.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Speech versus Language and the Magic of the Mundane.
Okay, so let's dive into this because we almost always use the words speech and language interchangeably, right? But neurologically speaking, they are entirely different beasts. Language is the brain's massive, abstract cognitive system. It's where the real behind-the-scenes magic happens. It's how you understand meaning, which is semantics. It's how you structure a sentence, syntax. And it's how you read the room, pragmatics. Like knowing that if someone says, wow, it's really cold in here, they might actually be asking you to get up and close the window. Language is what gives us infinite creativity. But then we have speech. And speech is not abstract at all. Speech is a highly demanding, unbelievably precise physical motor skill. It's literally the physical gymnastics of pushing air up from your lungs, vibrating the vocal folds in your larynx, and coordinating your tongue, your lips, and your jaw in rapid-fire succession.
And honestly, thinking about the words pat and bat perfectly illustrates just how demanding that motor skill actually is. To your brain, pat and bat are completely different concepts, completely different things. But physically, when you say them out loud, they differ by just one incredibly subtle movement of the vocal tract. A miscalculation of a tiny fraction of a second, or literally a single millimeter in where you place your lips, changes the entire meaning of the word you're putting out into the world. It is a breathtaking level of physical precision, and we completely take it for granted just because we figured out how to do it when we were toddlers.
What's really wild is that our brain actually divides up the different types of sounds we make. On one hand, we have learned speech, stuff like speaking, singing, reading out loud. These rely on highly specialized, very complex control centers located in our brain's cortex. We actually have to learn how to do them through experience. But on the other hand, we have natural vocalizations, things like crying, laughing, or groaning when you stub your toe. Those are instinctive. They're driven by much older, evolutionary circuits deep in the brain. And because these two systems are essentially wired to completely different hardware in the mind, you can actually have a patient who suffers brain damage and entirely loses their ability to speak, but they can still totally laugh at a good joke or cry in pain. That separation is a massive clue for scientists figuring out how our brains are wired.
Which brings us to Section 2, the journey of a thought, from brain to breath.
So how do we actually take an invisible thought floating around in our head and turn it into a physical sound wave that someone else can hear? Well, every single time you speak, even if you're just saying a single word like communication, your brain runs through this miraculous 4-step marathon in a matter of milliseconds. Step 1 is thought formation. A higher-order cognitive region in your brain decides, hey, here's the message I want to send. Step 2 is language planning. This is where your brain picks out the specific vocabulary and organizes the grammar. Step 3 is motor planning, and this is the really heavy lifting. Your brain calculates exactly how to move your tongue, lips, and jaw, literally down to the microsecond. And finally, Step 4, sound production. You exhale, the vocal folds vibrate, your muscles shape the air, and boom, out comes the word. Milliseconds of intense calculation over and over and over again for every single sentence you ever speak.
And really understanding this incredible timing helps us fundamentally rethink speech disorders, like stuttering. A lot of people mistakenly assume stuttering is just a psychological thing, caused by social anxiety. But actually, while stress can definitely make it worse, the root cause is a mechanical mismatch in the brain's motor planning and auditory feedback loop. Think about it like this.
When we talk, our brain is constantly listening to our own voice, comparing the speech we intended to make with the speech coming out of our mouths in this continuous feedback loop. Imagine trying to give a speech while hearing your own voice playing back to you on a half-second delay. You'd stumble, right? Well, that disruption in the neural network's exquisite timing is exactly what leads to the repetitions and blocks that happen during stuttering.
Let's move into Section 3, the broken bridge and restoring the voice.
Okay, so what happens when that biological pathway we just talked about is permanently severed? When the muscles themselves are paralyzed, but the mind inside is perfectly active and awake? Enter the brain-machine interface, or BMI. A BMI is essentially a direct technological bridge. If the body's muscles won't work, this technology just bypasses them entirely. Through clinical trials like Dr. Cheng's absolutely incredible Bravo project, researchers are taking these tiny, incredibly sensitive electrode arrays and implanting them directly into the speech centers of the human brain. And the goal here is simple but mind-blowing. Just listen to the brain's electrical activity and translate it directly into an external device.
Now, what's really interesting here is how beautifully this technology mirrors the exact biological steps we were just looking at. In a brain-machine interface, there are 4 key steps. First up, neural recording. The implanted electrodes capture the brain's electrical signals as the patient simply attempts to speak. Second, pattern recognition. This is where massive artificial intelligence algorithms step in to detect the patterns hidden inside that electrical storm. Third is decoding, where the system actively predicts what word the brain was trying to articulate. And fourth is communication output. That prediction is pushed out to a screen as text, or even spoken out loud by a synthetic voice. It goes straight from brain to AI to speech.
And the best part? This isn't just theory anymore. This is clinical reality. This is the story of Pancho. Pancho is a man who suffered a severe brainstem stroke that left him profoundly paralyzed. For years, his traditional methods of communication were painstakingly slow and super limited. But by participating in this trial, by using these implanted neural devices paired with machine learning algorithms, Pancho's brain signals were successfully decoded. He literally transitioned from severe paralysis back to active communication. It is a triumphant, totally life-altering breakthrough. It proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that speech restoration is no longer just the domain of science fiction. It's happening right now.
That takes us to Section 4, Beyond Words and the Human Connection.
But Dr. Cheng's team isn't just stopping at putting some text on a screen. Why? Because true human communication is far, far more than just generating a literal transcript. Just think about how you communicate with your friends or your family. So much of the actual meaning, the emotional richness, the core identity of who you are, it doesn't come from the words you type. It comes from your nonverbal signals. It's your facial expressions, the eye contact you make, your body posture, your hand gestures. If we only restore text or a flat robotic voice to a paralyzed patient, we're totally leaving out the emotional core that actually defines human social interaction.
And that brings us to the next massive frontier, AI digital avatars. Researchers are actively developing systems right now that don't just decode the word a patient wants to say, but they also decode the intended emotional expression behind the word. They can translate brain activity into a digital avatar on a screen that mimics synchronized lip movements, displays subtle emotional cues, and projects totally natural facial expressions. Just imagine a paralyzed patient not just triggering a robotic computer voice that says hello, but physically projecting a warm, fully digital smile to their loved ones. I mean, wow. That is the true restoration of human connection, not just the data transfer.
Let's wrap up with Section 5, the ethics of tomorrow, and reading the silent mind.
Now, we have to be real here. Whenever we talk about directly decoding the human brain, we are forced to confront some absolutely massive ethical dilemmas. Brain signals are, without a doubt, the most deeply private data a human being possesses. They are your intentions, your memories, your unvoiced feelings. So who owns that data? How do we secure it from being hacked or misused by corporations? And here's a really challenging one. Right now, this technology is a therapy designed to restore lost abilities to those who need it. But what happens when this tech gets so incredibly good that perfectly healthy individuals want implants to communicate faster or augment their own memory? Are we going to create an impossible social divide between those who can afford cognitive enhancement and those who can't? These are really tough conversations that society has to start having right now.
Because quite frankly, the gap between our current reality and our future horizons is shrinking every single day. Today, as we've seen, we are successfully restoring basic communication to paralyzed patients, and we're still dealing with the real-world hurdles of speed, safety, and reliability. But the future horizons we're looking at? We're talking about instantaneous wireless thought-to-thought communication. We're talking about the incredible, very real possibility that we may one day bypass the physical mechanics of spoken language entirely, transferring ideas directly from one human mind into a digital interface, or maybe even straight into another person's mind.
The work of Dr. Eddie Cheng is doing something miraculous. It is literally giving voices back to those who have been locked in silence for years. It's an absolute masterpiece of biology and engineering working together, but as the boundary between our private, internal human thoughts and artificial intelligence becomes increasingly thin, it leaves us with a profound, lingering question. If our thoughts literally become our voices, who owns our minds? Think about that for a bit. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.